Have you ever stood in front of your fridge, holding a yogurt pot, squinting at the tiny printed date on the bottom? The date says it expired 3 days ago. It smells fine. It looks fine. But you're standing there, genuinely unsure whether you're about to make a sensible breakfast decision or a terrible life choice. So you throw it away, just to be safe. But here's the thing. Millions of people do exactly this every single day. And most of the time, they're throwing away perfectly good food. Food that has nothing wrong with it. Food that could have been eaten without a single problem. But why? Why does a printed date have so much power over us? And more importantly, where did that date even come from? Who decided it? And what does it actually mean? Because here's the strange part. That date on your food? It was never really about your safety. Not in the way you think. Today we're uncovering the surprising truth behind best before dates. What they really mean, where they came from, and why the system we all trust might be one of the biggest misunderstandings in the history of food. Most people believe it's simple. The date on the packaging tells you when the food goes bad. Before that date, it's safe. After that date, it's dangerous. It's basically a countdown clock to food poisoning. That's the common understanding. That's what most of us were taught, either directly or just by watching adults throw things away the moment a date passed. And it feels logical, doesn't it? Food companies test their products. Scientists figure out when the food starts to deteriorate. They print that date. You follow it. Everyone stays safe. Clean. Simple. Trustworthy. Except that explanation falls apart the moment you ask one question. If best before dates are about food safety, why does the same product in different countries have completely different dates printed on it? Why does a bottle of ketchup in Germany carry a different date than the exact same bottle, made in the same factory, sold in the UK? The ketchup didn't change. The science didn't change. So why did the date? That question leads you somewhere very unexpected. The truth is, best before dates were never primarily designed to protect your health. They were designed to manage something else entirely, the shopping experience. It started in the 1970s, when supermarkets were growing rapidly and supply chains were getting longer and more complicated. Food was traveling further, sitting on more shelves, passing through more hands before it reached a customer. And retailers had a problem. How do you manage stock rotation? How do you make sure the older products get bought first? How do you give a shopper confidence that what they're picking up is fresh? The date label was the solution. It was a stock management and marketing tool. A way to tell store workers which products to move to the front of the shelf. A way to signal freshness to shoppers. Not a precise scientific measurement of safety. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. There are actually several different types of date labels, and most people have no idea they mean completely different things. You have best before, you have use by, and you have sell by. These are not the same thing. Not even close. But because they're all just dates printed on packaging, we treat them all the same. We see a date, we see it has passed, and into the bin it goes. Use by is the one that actually relates to safety. That's the date you should take seriously. It appears on highly perishable items, raw meat, fresh fish, dairy products that can harbor dangerous bacteria. When a use-by date passes, the risk genuinely increases. That's the date worth paying attention to. Best before is completely different. It refers to quality, not safety. It's the manufacturer's estimate of when the product is at its absolute best. Peak flavor, ideal texture, optimal color. After that date, the product might not be quite as crispy, or the flavor might have faded slightly, or the color might have changed a little. But it isn't dangerous. A biscuit 1 week past its best before date isn't going to send you to hospital. It might just be slightly less crunchy. And sell by? That's not even meant for you. That's a message to the retailer telling them when to rotate their stock. You were never supposed to be making decisions based on that date at all. So we have 3 different labels with 3 completely different meanings, and the majority of consumers treat all of them as a single universal warning that the food has turned deadly overnight. The result is staggering. And when we talk about staggering, we mean it in a way that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. Globally, roughly 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted every single year. 1/3. And a significant portion of that waste happens not on farms, not in factories, not even in supermarkets, but in our own homes, in our own kitchens, by people like you and me, throwing away food that was perfectly edible because a printed date told us to. In the United States alone, studies estimate that the average family throws away thousands of dollars worth of food every year. In the UK, households waste millions of tons annually. And researchers who have studied this problem closely have pointed to date label confusion as one of the leading causes. Think about that for a moment. We are throwing away real food, food that took real resources to grow, transport, package, and refrigerate, because of a number on a sticker that was originally designed to help a supermarket arrange its shelves. But this raises an even bigger question. If the system is so confusing, why hasn't it been fixed? Why do we still have multiple types of labels with different meanings that most people don't understand? The answer, as with so many things, comes down to a mixture of history, habit, and competing interests. Food manufacturers benefit from conservative dates because it encourages more frequent purchasing. Retailers benefit because it reduces complaints about quality. And regulators in different countries have never fully agreed on a single standard, which is why those dates vary so dramatically across borders. There have been serious efforts to simplify the system. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration and the Department of Agriculture have pushed for standardization, recommending that manufacturers move toward just 2 labels: best if used by for quality and used by for safety. Some major food companies have already made this switch voluntarily, but progress has been slow. And in the meantime, the confusion continues. And here is where the story takes a fascinating turn into human psychology. Because even if you now understand intellectually that best before is about quality and not safety, there's a very good chance you'll still feel uncomfortable eating food past that date. Why? Because dates create a psychological anchor. Once you see a number, your brain uses it as a reference point. Everything before it feels safe. Everything after it feels wrong. It doesn't matter that the food looks fine and smells fine. The date has already done its work on your mind. This is the same reason we feel uneasy eating the last biscuit from a packet we opened 2 months ago, even if it's been sealed the whole time. Or why we hesitate over tinned food that expired last year, even though tinned food is specifically designed to last for years beyond its printed date. Honey, for example, has been found in ancient Egyptian tombs thousands of years old, and it was still edible. It essentially does not expire. Yet most honey jars carry a best before date, because regulations or marketing conventions require it. Salt does not expire. Pure vinegar does not expire. White rice stored properly can last decades. Alcohol, sugar, dried beans. These are foods that can outlast us. Yet they carry dates, because the system we built doesn't easily distinguish between a fresh cream cake and a jar of sea salt. Around the world, different cultures have handled this very differently. In many parts of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, generations of food knowledge have been passed down that have nothing to do with printed dates. People learn to use their senses, smell, sight, texture, taste, to judge whether food is still good. And in many cases, this instinctive, sensory-based approach is more accurate than trusting a label. Your nose, it turns out, is an extraordinarily sophisticated instrument. The human sense of smell evolved partly as a food safety mechanism. Rotting food produces specific chemical compounds that our brains are wired to find deeply unpleasant. That reaction isn't random, it's protective. If food smells bad, your body is trying to tell you something real. If it smells fine, that's meaningful information too. We have, in a sense, outsourced a form of intelligence that we were born with, trading our own senses for a number printed by a machine in a factory, by someone who has never seen our specific fridge, never measured the temperature of our specific home, and never tasted our specific food. So let's return to where we started. You're standing in your kitchen, holding that yogurt pot. 3 days past its best before date. And now you know something you didn't know before. You know that date was about quality, not safety. You know it was designed for shelf management as much as for your protection. You know that your nose and your eyes are legitimate, scientifically valid tools for making that decision. And you know that if it's a use-by date on raw chicken, that's a completely different conversation. Take that one seriously. The best before date is not a countdown to danger. It is, at best, a quality estimate made by someone who has never been in your kitchen. At worst, it is a deeply misunderstood label costing the world billions of tons of food and billions in wasted money every single year. It's a reminder that even the most ordinary things, a tiny printed date on a yogurt pot, can hide an extraordinary story about history, psychology, marketing, and the way systems shape our behavior without us ever questioning them. Because the most powerful forces in our lives are often the ones we never stop to examine. Until now, if this made you look at your fridge differently, drop a comment below and tell me, what's the most surprising thing you've ever thrown away because of a date label? And if you want more stories about the hidden science behind everyday life, subscribe so you never miss one. New video every week. We'll see you there.